Now that the dust has settled a little bit, I want to take a closer look at the Steam Deck price hike. I also want to talk about how Valve handled this in the worst way possible, and I want to talk about the Steam Machine because getting this right is now more important than ever. How's it going, everyone? As always, my name is Jimmy Champagne. This is Deck Ready, my channel all about Steam hardware. And despite all this negative news flying around, I hope you're still having a great week playing a ton of video games. So it's been a couple of days since the Steam Deck went back in stock after being out of stock for like 3 or 4 months, and it came back in stock with a $300 price increase for the 1 terabyte, all the way up to $950. And I'm just gonna be real, it sucks. I've been using this thing for 4 years. I use it every single day. I absolutely love it. I was there day one for the limited edition Steam Deck OLED, and I'm still all in on the Steam Machine and the Steam Deck too. But a huge reason why it's been so easy to recommend it for this long is because even though you've been making a sacrifice from the very beginning in terms of price to performance, the bonuses on top, like the trackpads, the OLED screen, the form factor, the back buttons, SteamOS, the boutique graphics driver updates, Proton getting updated for new games all the time, that made it more worth it to me personally, even though I was sacrificing on performance, over picking something like the ROG Ally Up, the Ally X, the Legion Go, the Legion Go S. Like, we've had so many Steam Deck killers, quote unquote, come out. But the Steam Deck's trump card, on top of everything I already mentioned, was that it was available at an affordable price, right? You were taking a performance hit for sure, but it was at such a great price that it ultimately didn't really matter. Like, this happened last generation where everyone was trying to get people to buy PS4 Pros or Xbox One X's, and people were happy to buy the Nintendo Switch despite how weak it was, because the experience you got playing on it was novel, new, and genuinely good. It's the same thing with the Steam Deck. I know I could play on these handhelds I have, like the ROG Xbox Ally X, but I don't want to because I like the Steam Deck experience. So not being able to recommend it because of the price stings a lot. And we can talk all day long about how it's not Valve's fault. They had to raise the price because RAM prices are through the roof. They don't have the decades-old relationships with manufacturers and shipping companies like Nintendo and Sony and Microsoft do. We can talk about how they're working at such a small scale compared to these other companies that it's harder to make cheaper deals on these parts and sign contracts like companies like Asus or Nintendo or Microsoft do. It doesn't really matter at the end of the day because the price is simply too high for what this thing is. But with that being said, while I am a little surprised to see it selling out, I guess I'm not fully surprised because from the beginning, if you were buying a Steam Deck, like I mentioned, it was never for price to performance. It was for the experience. And I guess there are people out there with $1,000 to burn on a 4-year-old handheld who really want that experience from the Steam Deck, and more power to them. They can do with their money what they want to. I'd have to really think at these prices. That's all I'm going to say. The biggest problem for me personally, someone who doesn't like talking about price and tries to keep things positive, is that raising the price this much kind of forces you like a funnel into talking about price versus performance. But when you're at a minimum price of $780, the only question you can ask is, can I get something faster and better for just a couple $100 more? And yeah, you can. You can go buy an ROG Xbox Ally X right now for $999, install SteamOS on it, and get blazing fast performance in a pretty decent handheld form factor. And I totally understand why people are feeling that way, because as the price rises, the experience becomes less important, and as the window between the two closes, it's harder to justify a weaker handheld, especially if for $200 more, you can get one that's extremely powerful. And I really hope that someone from Valve is watching this video, because a huge reason I think people are so pissed off is because of the way Valve handled this price hike situation. Valve is not unique in any way, in the sense that they were basically forced to raise the prices of their hardware, but the way they handled it just straight up blows, if we're being honest. The way Sony handled it was incremental, and every time they raised the prices, they gave at least a month of lead time, and that's what caused people to go fire sale the PS5 Pro, because it went from $700 all the way up to $900. They had an entire month to get one locked in at the current price before they jumped up. Nintendo is raising the price from $450 to $500 for the Switch 2, and they gave 6 months lead time. Asus has been able to keep the prices low, but even when they've had to raise raised them, they've given fair warning. Xbox as well with the Series X, they give fair warning. Like all of these companies except Lenovo, who raised it by thousands out of nowhere, like their price increase is worse than Valve, have given adequate lead time for people who are waiting to buy these things to get them at a decent price before the prices jump. Valve, on the other hand, did none of that. They are one of the quietest companies in the world. They should have been giving updates on the stock issues. They should have been giving updates on the RAM issues. They should have been giving updates on how long they thought the Steam Deck would be out of stock. And if they were waiting to see if prices would go down, they should have said that as well. I know it was hinted at in some interviews and maybe it was posted in some blog posts or something like that. But this situation is bad enough where if you think you're going to have to raise it by $300, I think it justifies a little more effort from Valve to soften the blow and let people know what's going on, especially opposed to what they did, which is offer none of that. And I don't even think people would have been mad if the price increase was a little bit smaller. Like if it was $100 or $50, people would have been like, yeah, this sucks, but I expected it just based on what's going on in the entire industry. But coming out of nowhere with a $300 price increase, it's a real slap in the face, honestly, for anyone who's been waiting for this thing to come back in stock, because since Valve is the only place you can get this stuff, like through the Steam store, the used market is not very healthy. If you get a deal on Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, or eBay, it's generally because something is wrong with the Steam Deck and the person is hiding it. Like if you go check eBay right now and before this price hike even happened, there is demand. People are paying up to $900 for Steam Deck OLEDs, a little bit less than what it currently costs now, ironically, but the used market is not what I would call healthy. The supply is not strong enough to lower the prices enough for it to be a genuinely good used market. So people have been left out in the cold, shit out of luck for like 3 or so months now, and then you put it back in stock at a higher price and hide behind a blog post like, yeah, you know, the RAM prices are too expensive. You just have to deal with it. There's like 50 other ways they could have handled this, and not only did they not even try to do it in a better way, they picked the absolute worst way possible. So from that perspective, I hate to say it, I think they deserve all the criticism they're getting. And I think there's 3 messages Valve should take from this situation. A, you've got to be more communicative with your fan base. Like there's no other way to say it. You've got to talk to people more. You've got to do more interviews. I don't care if you get on camera like I do and just give regular updates on YouTube. You've got to do something. The second lesson that I think they're learning is that this thing is way too expensive, and hopefully that can be addressed in some way. But the third thing I really hope they internalize is that people are mad because they want this thing. They want in on the ecosystem, and they're frustrated and angry at Valve for selling it at a price that's simply too high to justify. In my opinion, if you're starting a new hardware line in 2020 when people are already ingrained in either their own pre-built PC, their PS5, their Xbox, their Switch, the hardest thing to do is to get people excited for your new product, and that's exactly what they did. So by raising the price this much and doing it in the way they did, they're really burning a new audience that's sitting there waiting to join in. And I don't think they should do that. Like, I know that the goal for this stuff was to give people who are already in the Steam ecosystem an easier way to interact with it. And I think they served that purpose perfectly. But I also think they accidentally created a new audience of people that is not insignificant who really care about this stuff and were interested in maybe either buying something in addition to what they already have, or even jumping ship from what they're currently playing on because of the shitty business practices that companies like Nintendo, Sony, and Microsoft have employed over the past decade. And when you raise the price this much, you're simply throwing that potential audience away. There is a chance to recover by lowering the price or explaining it, but the window on that is shrinking very fast. And honestly, I'm not expecting much from them because in normal times, they're one of the quietest companies around. So why would they wake up and change overnight? So that's why I said I hope someone from Valve is watching, because you have an opportunity here to recover this. And I'm not expecting you to take it, but I hope you do. And this is where things really get interesting, because we have a new hardware launch potentially right around the corner with the Steam Machine. And when all this drama was happening, sadly, it's Bradley came out and said when he heard the price target Valve was looking at 2 months ago, it was higher than what the Steam Deck currently costs now. So people are looking at that and saying de facto, the Steam Machine is going to start at $1,000. And honestly, I've been saying since the start, there is a line for me. I think it's like $1,600 or $1,700 where I'm out, but I'm in it again for the experience and I would pay $1,000. But I'm also still holding out hope that there is one SKU that will meet the price target they had initially, which we've heard from Mike Straw at Insider Gaming, which is $800. And that, of course, is the 512 without the controller. Anything above that, like the 2 terabyte without the controller, I think you're above $1,000. The 512 with a controller, you're at $900 or $1,000. The 2 terabyte with a controller, I think you're at $1,250. But if Valve is as smart and consumer friendly and consumer focused as we think they are, or at least I think they are, I think they really will look long and hard at the 512 gig without the controller and make sure it comes in at less than $1,000. I think even at the $800 price, you're losing a lot of people. The delusional class of people who thought this thing was going to be $399 or $499. Like, I think they're crazy. I don't think that was ever going to happen, even in a perfect world. This is not a game console, it's a PC. If you added up all the parts, you got to like $750 to $800. Nowadays, with the cost of RAM and storage, you're around $1,000 anyway. So if Valve really wants to recover their image, which I think is important for them to really think long and hard about, they'll make sure that at least one of these is below $1,000. And I think there is a big group of people who will appreciate that and be happy to buy it at that price, aka me. I would be happy to see one below $1,000. Anything lower than that at this point, I think is impossible, because being realistic, Valve is not Sony, Valve is not Nintendo, Valve is not Microsoft. They don't have the relationships, they don't have the scale, they don't even have the experience or team size that any of these companies have. And we got to be realistic with our expectations here based on how expensive components like RAM and storage are getting. Like, the hardware team at Valve, last time I checked, was like 5 or 10 people. I think it's going to help them that they just hired someone to help them price their stuff better. I just wish they hired them sooner, because all of this could have and should have been avoided. That brings me to the end of my script. If you stuck around till the end, I really appreciate you watching this video. I'm bummed about this situation. I think out of all the Steam Deck YouTubers or anyone really talking about it, I personally have sold more Steam Decks than really anyone out there besides Valve. I hear from people all the time who say because of my videos they bought the Steam Deck, and it just fucking blows that no one's going to be able to do that anymore because it's simply too expensive. With that being said, I'm not like going to stop using my Steam Deck. I still absolutely love it. I just played Hitman World of Assassination in bed last night on it, and it was excellent. Like, I'm glad I already have one, and I feel for the people who have to deal with this situation. But also, I think the vast majority of people who were interested in it bought it in the last 3 years. Like, I did plenty of videos saying when it was on sale to pick it up, when it went out of stock the first time and came back in stock. People told me they're glad they listened to my advice to buy it then, because we didn't know if it would go out of stock again, and it did. So I just like am taking solace in the fact that it seems like the vast majority of people who wanted one were able to get one, and I'm just going to be positive and cross my fingers that things resolve and work out better in the future, especially for the Steam Machine and eventually the Steam Deck 2. But yeah, guys, thanks for sticking with me in this long ass video. I really appreciate it. And again, I hope you're having a great week playing a ton of video games. That's what you should be doing instead of arguing with people on Twitter about the Steam Deck price, because I'm already sick of it. I hate arguing over this stuff, and I hope we can get past it and talk about things that are exciting again soon. But anyway, guys, as always, my name is Jimmy Champagne. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching, and shape on.